It was sometime after midnight. No one can agree on the exact time. Some say it started at 1:38 a.m., others at 3:14 a.m. But what everyone agrees on is that something extraordinary happened deep inside Russian airspace that night. Far from the front lines, 6 Ukrainian UJ-26 Beaver long-range drones took off, each loaded with a specific mission: destroy a military train carrying tons of ammunition and fuel, enough to power an entire Russian offensive. Their flight was silent and calculated. The drones crossed hundreds of kilometers of dark terrain, guided by encrypted satellite signals and flight data. Everything seemed normal until suddenly the first sign of trouble appeared. At 3:27 a.m., all 6 drones lost satellite connection at once. Their navigation systems froze. A powerful Russian Repellent 1 electronic warfare system had detected them and jammed their signals. This wasn't ordinary jamming. The system didn't just block communication, it tried to take over. By sending false control signals, it attempted to hijack the drones and force them to land or return to base. Russian operators watched their monitors closely, expecting the Ukrainian drones to lose control and drop from the sky. But something unexpected happened. The UJ-26 Beavers had a secret. They used frequency-hopping spread spectrum technology, switching between thousands of radio frequencies every second. Before the Repellent 1 system could lock onto one signal, the drones had already jumped to another. Their backup guidance systems, a mix of internal sensors and terrain mapping, kept them steady and on course. The mission was back on. After crossing deeper into Russian airspace, the formation split in two. 3 drones turned south toward the Siversky Donets River Valley, while the other 3 flew north toward a major highway. The northern group was meant to be seen. It was bait. Russian radar operators picked up their signatures and immediately directed Panzer S-1 air defense units to intercept. That was exactly what Ukrainian intelligence hoped for, to draw defenses away from the real attack route. Meanwhile, the southern group continued its stealthy flight path, using valleys and low terrain to stay hidden below the radar horizon. Their route was longer, over 250 kilometers, but safer. Ukrainian analysts had spent weeks mapping Russian radar blind spots, where hills, trees, and even the Earth's curve created shadows invisible to sensors. Flying this route required extreme precision. At just 180 kilometers per hour, the pilots had to maintain an altitude of around 25 meters. If they climbed too high, long-range radar could spot them. Too low, and they risked crashing into power lines or trees. At 3:41 a.m., the northern decoy group reached its target, the Olovsky Power Substation, one of the key energy points supporting local radar and air defense grids. 2 Zu-23 anti-aircraft guns guarded the area, fast-firing weapons but completely reliant on visual tracking. The Ukrainian drones used a technique known as radar gate threading, flying through radar blind spots, then briefly climbing above a ridge to reorient before dropping back down. Each exposure lasted only seconds, too quick for Russian radar to lock on. Thermal cameras locked onto their target, a massive 330 kilovolt transformer feeding power to multiple military sites, including one protecting the Salsk railway station. The first drone rose sharply into the air, drawing attention. Gunfire erupted from the Zu-23 positions, tracers cutting through the night sky. While the Russian gunners focused upward, the second and third drones moved in low, almost skimming the ground. At just 120 meters from the target, one drone dropped its payload, a 20-kilogram KZ-6-shaped charge. The explosion ripped through the transformer's steel casing. Superheated copper tore through the core, igniting the cooling oil. A chain reaction followed, a bright flash, then a thunderous fireball. 2 seconds later, another drone struck the top of the transformer, while the third hit the control cabinet, disabling all safety systems. The resulting surge of 330,000 volts caused a cascading blackout. Across the region, radar screens went dark. For the next 20 minutes, Russian defense systems rebooted blindly, unsure of what had just happened. At 3:59 a.m., the southern group began its final run. The blackout had created the perfect opening. With the radar network offline, the drones were invisible. The Panzer S-1 stationed near the Salsk railway station had lost connection with its command network. The crew switched to local mode, but with no data feed, their reaction time had dropped from minutes to mere seconds. And to make matters worse, Ukrainian intelligence had timed the attack during the Pantsir crew's shift change, when alertness was at its lowest. Rain poured down. GPS was unreliable. The pilots navigated by landmarks and railway lines, using infrastructure masking, flying close to metal tracks that confused radar returns. Inside the Pantsir vehicle, a gunner caught a faint heat signature on his display. He tried to track it, but the system was lagging. The hydraulics moved slowly under reduced power. He managed to launch 157E6 missile manually. It fired, but its radio guidance link failed after a few hundred meters. The missile veered off into the dark sky and disappeared. Now, the drones were seconds away. They performed a scatter maneuver. One climbed, one dropped, one kept straight. The gunner, overwhelmed by multiple targets, locked onto the brightest one, a decoy. By the time he realized his mistake, the other two had slipped out of sight. At 4:06 a.m., the Pantsir system was effectively neutralized, not destroyed, but blinded and powerless to defend. 3 minutes later, the Ukrainian drones regrouped for their final strike, the Salsk railway station itself. Thermal feeds confirmed the target, a 38-car military train loaded with artillery shells, rockets, and tank fuel. The attack was surgical. The first drone hit the locomotive, setting its fuel lines ablaze and stopping it dead on the tracks. The second struck a tanker car filled with diesel fuel, nearly 60,000 liters. Flames rushed down the railway, igniting everything in their path. Then came the third, diving directly into a central ammunition car. The explosion that followed shook the ground for kilometers. One car after another ignited, creating a chain of detonations. A huge column of fire rose into the sky, visible even from neighboring towns. Russian officials later claimed that 22 Ukrainian drones had been intercepted that night, but videos recorded by civilians told a different story. Endless explosions, secondary blasts, and a fire that burned until morning. Analysts later estimated the total damage. A destroyed Pantsir system, $15 million. The transformer, around $2.5 million. Dozens of train cars, fuel, ammunition, tens of millions more. In total, over $40 million in losses from one coordinated strike. The mission lasted roughly half an hour, from the first electronic contact to the last explosion. But its impact went far beyond numbers. It showed how modern warfare has changed, how cheap, precise, and intelligent drones can bypass even the most advanced defenses. It wasn't just an attack, it was a warning that the battlefield of the 21st century doesn't always belong to the biggest army, but to the smartest. If you want to understand how operations like this are changing the future of conflict, subscribe. Because what happened that night might just be the beginning of a new kind of war.